I'd like to tell you is that Acts of Kindness Maine is our organization that exists to bring more kindness into people's lives in Maine, because we could use more of it. So I want to try and give you some hope that there are people out there working to make this a better, more kind world. And what we're doing is we are doing programs and courses on kindness through a number of different adult education programs where people come and learn and talk about how to be more kind. Because here's another question for you. Do you think that most people, given the opportunity, would like to be more kind? Yeah? Most people would like to. And that what happens is things get in our way, right? Like, for instance, if we're in a hurry, am I right? When you're in a hurry, it's harder to be kind than when you're not in a hurry. Is that right? Because, like, if you're on your way to a meeting and you're rushing, or you're trying to get to the store before it closes, or you're trying to get here to this luncheon in time, and you see somebody who's in trouble on the street, you might be less inclined to help them, right? So we're doing all of these classes through adult education programs. We're working with college students. We're working in K through 12. We're working with businesses on creating workshops and classes to help people be more kind, which means to help people do things like don't be in such a hurry. You know, we don't necessarily say you need to be more kind. We say, won't your life be better if you're not in so much of a rush all the time? And that means that people then end up being kinder because they're not in such a hurry. So I would like to ask for a volunteer to tell us who is the kindest person you've ever known in your life. And the person who gives a story will get, am I allowed to say they'll get extra dessert? You get 2 cookies instead of 1. One of them might be a pretend cookie in case there's not enough to go around. But you will get applause from everybody in the room if somebody will give a story. Who's the kindest person you've ever known? Was it one of your parents? Was it a teacher? Was it a stranger? Who wants to raise their hand? Raise your hand. I see someone with her hand up over there. Okay, so let's all keep quiet so this woman can share about the kindest person she's ever known. And can you tell us your name?
Anne.
Hi, Anne.
Hi. The kindest person, which is a lot of kind persons in my life, and people here in my life, very kind. The kindest person that I love dearly, I lost when I was 11 years old. And that is my dad. And we lived on a big farm. And he would take me, and this wasn't when roads were pavements. It was when roads were dirt. And he would take me with him with his Clydales. 4 Clydales that lived in the woods in Maine where I grew up as a child. And he would take me over to where he kept these Clydales in the woods every morning and take the Clydales and hook them up, feed them, and I help feed them and brush them and give them their salt rock and clean them up and love on them. And then we would travel up to Maine in the woods where he was a logger. And I would help him in the logging with him. And we would come back in the evening and we would put the Clydales back. And when we came back from Maine, you couldn't just turn those Clydales on a dime. and have them come in, you had to, when we came back from Maine, he had to go down straight and back them up and back them into the place where they lived, and I would help him undo the Clydales, and then we would go home. And I was always with him. He always took me out in the car with his friends and go see his friends. And he would stop at the store and ask me what I would like for candy, and he would buy me my favorite candies. And I just love him so much to this day. It breaks my heart not to be with him. But I also love my family, and I grew up with siblings that I love very much. So that is a big, deep part of my life in the history of Maine back in those days are a very big part of my life today. Thank you very much.
And thank you for sharing that beautiful story.
Thank you.
And can we honor your father by, if you want to, tell us his name?
Tell me something.
Tell us your father's name.
My father's name was George Arthur Ricker.
Okay.
And he lived in Maine. And the heritage of my father is a big history story. And he bought the farmhouse when I was young, a colonial farmhouse. I was born in that colonial farmhouse in the kitchen. And I was a preemie, so they had to put me in one of those ovens that was just kept low heat in that oven. And here I am today.
And that is a beautiful story.
My dad was a very strong man, very strong man.
That's beautiful.
I can't say enough about him. I just love him dearly, and I miss him.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
I'm curious, is there anybody else here who was born at home? Yeah, I see a couple of hands here.
Yes, a lot of people want to talk.
Yeah,
Yes, you was.
yeah,
She was.
okay.
No, I'm not going to.
So, does anybody else want to share a story about the kindest person in their life? I know Ann really set a high bar, but yes.
There's a woman in here that.
What is your name? Tell us your name.
My name is Grace.
Grace?
It's on the right here.
And who is it, Grace?
There's a woman in here, that lives in Mayflower, and she does all kinds of cooking and passes out pieces of pie and pitches right in and helps anybody that needs it. And I admire the woman. I really do.
That's beautiful. Is she in the room here?
No,
Okay. Do you think she would mind if you told us her name?
Claire.
Claire. Okay. She sounds like a,
Everybody here would agree, or the majority would agree. She is
oh, that's
fantastic woman.
that's wonderful. Wonderful. Anyone else? Maybe from this side of the room? We heard from the other end. We heard from the middle. So now I'll look over here. Who's the kindest person? Yes, the woman in the. And what is your name? Tell us your name. Elaine. Hi, Elaine.
My mother was the most kind person that I ever lived.
Oh.
She used to work very hard, and she had 4 children, and she used to go see people in the nursing home and hospital. And whoever needed a hand, she could help.
Okay.
It was very nice, my mother.
That's beautiful. And what was her name? Or is she still alive?
Sissy, no, she passed away at 51.
Okay. Oh.
But yeah, I remember her like it was yesterday. Her name was Cecile.
Cecile. Okay. That's a beautiful name.
It is.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that story. I think that deserves a round of applause. else, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but sometimes I do that. But we've heard from 3 women. Are there any gentlemen in the room? And if none of them want to, then I'll tell my story of the kindness person. But I thought I'd see if there's any gentlemen in the room who... Yes, thank you. And what is your name?
Daryl.
Daryl?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my mother was the kindest person I ever met. And of course I rubbed on with my wife and married to her for 50 years. And she passed away 5 years ago. But my mother-in-law passed away when she was 59. And so that's very young. But she instilled qualities in my life that I still retain today.
Mm.
And my wife as well. And I'm fortunate enough to have met Pam, who is a very kind person as well.
Okay. Thank you, Daryl. And you want to tell us your mother's name and your wife's name?
My mother's name was Cleta, but my mother-in-law was Jeanette.
Your mother-in-law, right, yeah,
Right.
your mother-in-law.
Also, my brother-in-law, my brother is a very, very kind person. But my brother's also my best friend.
Oh, that's not always the case, right? For brothers. So that says something. Oh, thank you, Daryl.
Yeah.
That is really beautiful. I'll share with you a story, and then I'll be curious to see if this maybe makes you think of like any stories that you have. I think one of the kindest things that was ever done for me was when my wife and I were building our home, and we converted an old 1850s post and beam barn into a home. And it was a pretty long-term project. And one of the rooms was going to be my office. And I went away on a business trip. And when I went away, because it was a slow process, as, dare I say, men in Maine, when we build things, sometimes it takes a long time, right? How many half-built houses do we see? Because whatever the reason is. So my office, the sheetrock was all in, but my desk was a door on sawhorses. And my file cabinets were apple crates. And the walls were all empty. And, not to stereotype men versus women, but it was fine with me, What was wrong with that? But I came home from this business trip, and I walked into my office, and there was a desk that my wife had gotten, I think from Goodwill, and got 2 guys to help move upstairs into the office. She had put pictures on the walls. She got bookcases and put my books in them. And she had a nice, comfortable chair for me to sit in with a reading lamp. And it's funny, I so much appreciated it. Now, I felt a little bit like, I'll admit, like, gee, I wish maybe she'd asked me what I wanted. But you know what? I, over time, have come to realize, honest to God, that was 1996. If she hadn't done that, do you know what my office would look like right now? Exactly the same. I'm almost positive of that. So over time, and I think it's part of the lesson of that. There's an art to kindness. Like, sometimes we do kind things for people and they don't know it at the time. And I think that's like where kindness is an art that we learn more and more over time. Like, I learned something. I was talking to the women at the table back over there, and I realized, I said, I hadn't thought of this. Like, because you have the handout I gave you called the Wheel of Kindness, which gives you, I think it's 14 major categories. Because there's so many different ways to be kind. Sometimes kindness is giving people cookies. Sometimes kindness is just listening. Sometimes kindness is getting angry at someone if maybe they really need to hear something that you're angry about instead of bottling it up. Sometimes kindness is to get angry at someone else because they're hurting this person. And what struck me talking to the women at the table back there, I said, yes, sometimes kindness, it's not just giving someone a cookie. And I realized, because like sometimes it's really kind to give somebody a cookie, and other times, let's say someone's a diabetic, the kind thing to do is to say, you know what, honey, I don't really think you should be eating that cookie. And you take it away from them. Is that right? So we have to trust, our heart and try and be honest about what kindness is. I guess I'm curious, do any of you have any stories that come to mind? Yes. Tell me your name again.
Grace.
Grace, how could I forget that? Beautiful.
My oldest daughter, I was not diagnosed at the time, and I had a real bad headache, and I was taking these pills like candy, and she got angry with me, and she kicked me out of the house, because I was living with her. And it was the best thing anybody could have ever done. I wound up in a shelter. I wound up being diagnosed that I had severe depression. I wound up having to change a lot of the things that I was thinking and kind of like grow up, and it wouldn't have happened if she hadn't done that. It really would not have happened.
Wow.
I would have gone undiagnosed and I probably wouldn't even be alive right now. So to me, that was kindness. And she feels guilty. She feels very guilty. And I keep telling her, don't.
Oh.
Because it's the best thing that ever happened.
So Grace, that is a beautiful story. What is her name?
Her name is Jude.
Jude. So, and that reminds me, and I think you all know, I told you all have blank thank you cards at your tables. You can take 2 each with envelopes to send to whoever you want. Do you think maybe you'll send a thank you card to your daughter?
I know I will.
Maybe send her both of yours.
Yep, she did, it was tough for her, but she did it.
Can we give her a round of applause?
Yeah.
Well, you apparently raised a very amazing daughter.
Oh, she is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, she'll tell me just what she thinks.
No. Well, and that's, if you look, if you look on this wheel of kindness, one of the ones on the left, towards the top, says be yourself.
Yep.
And sometimes I say be authentic. And I say that those people who sometimes, like when we think of somebody who we really don't like, oftentimes it's because they speak their mind and they don't always do it in the best possible way, but we know where they stand.
Yep.
Your daughter says what's real.
Yep.
And so you never have to wonder whether to believe her or not, right?
Yes. And I have to listen to her a lot,
And so that's an act of kindness.
Not, but
Thank you, Grace, for that story.
thank you.
Yeah. Anyone? Yes, over to you, Daryl.
I was bullied as a kid,
You were bullied?
yes.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest acts of kindness that I've had out of all of that is a bully come back and apologize for treating me the way he did.
Yeah.
That happened 2 different times.
Wow. How long after you had been bullied did that happen?
still in high school at the time. So, I grew up in Georgetown, Massachusetts, so one of the boys that was down there, I worked in a donut shop in Springfield, and he came in and he saw me there, and he apologized for how he treated me in high school in Georgetown. And then I had another one here in Maine that bullied me quite a lot. And I didn't have a whole lot of it, but I had, you recognize those things, you know? Those are acts of kindness that are be over and above the call of duty.
Yeah, oh, that's beautiful. Well, I think those, you know, did you say both of the bullies did that? You had two of them.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should give them a round of applause. Deb, how are we doing on time? What, one or two more stories, or?
Yep, sure.
Okay, so I think what I'll do is this. I want to just read, two things. Another thing, I didn't give you the handout because I thought I would just demonstrate this to you. There's a handout about why should we be kind. And it has a big circle on it. So just picture a giant circle like this. And that circle is everything about a person's life is that giant circle. And inside the circle there's a little dot. And you know what that little dot is? What we know about their life.
Yeah.
Right? There's so much that people have in their lives and we know so little about. You know, there's another saying which is, everybody we meet is fighting a battle that we know nothing about.
Yes.
So be kind. So I want to I'll sort of walk through the wheel of kindness and then see if there's any more, maybe one more story. So if you look at this handout, you start at the top. The ones on the right are the things that are seen. Like, does anybody need the handout?
Yeah, there's one here.
One here? Okay. I see two back there. Two here? So, yeah, and I'll just be talking through it. So, some of these I'll start with are the ones that we can see it when it happens. Like noticing and appreciating. You know, simply noticing, it doesn't even have to be noticing something kind, but just like, I always notice when people are wearing really interesting things. This woman over here has, I think, not that everybody doesn't have good sweaters, but I think she's got, for me, the best sweater. Like, and this woman agrees. Like, when we notice somebody doing something, anything, like when somebody notices something about you, it makes you feel good, right? Makes you feel like somebody's paying attention. So if we move through the world paying attention, that's an act of kindness. Offering help, of course, is an act of kindness. Giving someone a gift. Asking questions is an act of kindness because we all have stories we want to tell. And if we ask questions, then somebody knows more about us. So that's an act of kindness. And it prevents us from making assumptions if we ask. Creating beauty in the world is an act of kindness. Speaking truthfully. So this goes to the one that Grace talked about. Her daughter spoke truthfully to her, and that was kind. Apologizing. I think we'd all agree apologizing is an act of kindness. Doing what's right. Letting others go first is an act of kindness. Forgiving. Withholding judgment and trying to understand people. Listening. just listening. I mean, how many of you are ever in a situation where you don't want anybody to fix your problem? You may not even want them to say, oh, you know, you should feel better. You just want them to listen, right? Sometimes that's just what we want. Being yourself and just being present. Those are just some of the ways of being kind, but I think they capture a lot of the different ways. So does anybody, if you want, and I know we're probably all getting ready for dessert. So I'm maybe no longer being very kind because I'm keeping you from your cookies. So does anybody have a quick short story of anything that comes to you from all these different ways of being kind? Where somebody noticed you or spoke truthfully, or did anybody get it? You know, Daryl told us about apologies. Anybody want to offer a story of when you forgave somebody or were forgiven? Was anybody here a bully? I see, Anne, you have another story for us?
Yes. This is one of my siblings,
Okay.
a year older than me. I was always bullied as a child. Always left behind. Always never in a room with my siblings. I didn't understand it, went through it all my life. Didn't understand it. Then as I got older, I realized what was happening.
Okay.
So it's just escalated all my life, and I have one sibling that to this day no one really cares for because of her actions, not understanding, not forgiving, just her, being her. So everybody left her behind now.
Okay.
She's way behind. And nobody can forgive her. I forgave her for everything that she done to me. I forgave her. So she can't hurt me no more. I feel really good about that because I couldn't take her hurt no more. It's still there, but me forgiving her just put an angel on my side, and you know, I'm not hurt no more about it. That's all I can say. But she is still hurt today. She's not a caring person. She's not a loving person. She's an evil person. I'm sorry to say, but I don't go with the evil. I stay with the kindness, and that's my forgiveness. My forgiveness towards evil and whatever's to harm me. Forgiveness is my kindness to me. That's how I roll.
And
Thank you.
That's a beautiful story. Thank you, Anne. I want to leave you then with one more thing I'll read to you, because Anne, you reminded me. In one of our adult education classes, one of the students, the participants, took her thank you card, the blank thank you card, and she wrote a thank you note to her sister, who sounds very similar to your sister. The sister, nobody in the family knows how to deal with her. She's very difficult. She causes lots of problems. And the person in this class wrote this thank you to her.
Yes.
And I'll read it to you.
Okay.
Susan, writing to thank you, and she, this is true, she means this.
Yes, yes.
Because her sister, as difficult as she was, this person realized in her own way she was trying to help their father, even though it was probably not even the right way. But she realized, let me at least notice and acknowledge that. So she wrote, Susan, writing to thank you for everything you are doing to help Dad. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you. I'm aware that you were upset with what happened while we were in Michigan. I regret that it was so hard for you. That was not my intention. I miss hearing from you. You are important to me. You are a wonderful daughter, mother, and grandmother too. I admire you for your independence and creativity. I always have. I love you. When you are ready, I look forward to being connected again. Reach out when you need help, but only if it feels right. and she put some X's and zeros in there. And
We're connected. My sister and I are connected because I forgave.
and when this person wrote this card, she didn't get a wonderful response, but she did get a response that said, "Thank you for your card." So I just want to thank all of you. This has been a wonderful group, and I want to have all of you give a round of applause for each other.